Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Vinh and Ali show, where in this podcast, we're going to be reviewing the book Still Like an Artist by Austin Kleon. Hey, Ali. How you going, brother?
Hey, Vin. How are you, bro? We're back to video. We're live.
I know we are back to video and we're live, which is really interesting. We've done a series of episodes offline and no camera just to see how that impacts our ability to be able to converse. But I think it caused us to butt in on each other because we can't see each other. So when when one of us has a thought, we're about to jump in, but the other person can't see us and we've lost the visual stimuli, right?
Mm-hmm. It's all about the visual stimuli with us.
Such young teenage boys we are. Now, this book was super short. This was such a short book. I didn't expect to get a lot out of this, but I did.
Is that the overview?
Well, I mean, the overview for me with this book is that it gave me a lot of clarity as to how I should approach mastering a craft. I always felt bad copying people because going through high school and going through the education system, we're taught that copying people is bad. You know, you don't want to copy your friend's work. You don't want to copy this person or that person. You want to do your own work. So, I mean, the title of this book immediately grabbed me because Still Like an Artist, I never thought that artists steal. I didn't think that was what artists do. I thought they create something that's original. So it completely reframed for me what stealing is or copying is. It kind of helped me see that in a completely different way that now I can apply into archery. I can apply that into my work as a thought leader. I can apply that to how I live my life. So this was a short but very, very powerful book for me because it reframed so much.
Yeah, I agree. The word that always comes to mind when I think about this book is emulation. It gives you a really cool framework for practical emulation. And I remember before reading this book, I first read this book maybe in 2015. And I was in that mindset back then that, you've got to protect your ideas. It's all about creating original thought. But then this book helped me conceptualize it. Wow, actually nothing's original. Every single thing is an evolution. It doesn't matter what it is. And I love even the example that it uses in the book. It talks about Kobe Bryant and how Kobe Bryant studied Michael Jordan, Magic Johnson, all these players that were there before him. Then he copied their blueprint and then added his own flavor. And I think it gives overarching, it gives you courage to go out and actually try things. And that if you want to then try something new, we always talk about passions and pursuing those. This book actually gives you a pretty cool practical framework that says, all right, well, if you want to start something new, go and find somebody who's doing that thing that you're thinking about. Copy them a little bit, and then add your own little flavor, which is something.
I think in that same passage where I was talking about Kobe, he was saying how Kobe wasn't able to exactly copy the moves from Michael Jordan because they're physically built differently. And as a result of him not being able to copy Michael Jordan exactly, he then made the move his own because of his inability. Isn't that interesting? And how he brought up a lot of comedians. Yeah, how comedians try to completely emulate another comedian, but because they aren't able to do that, they end up creating their own style. And I think that then removes that negative stigma that's attached to copying people. I don't know if you ever had that, but I've felt that to the max. Anytime I had someone I was inspired by, the moment someone says, you're just like that person, or you copy that person, I feel so bad. So whenever I looked at emulation or copying, I always looked at it with, should I be doing that? I don't know. Is this right? Whereas this book completely now has shifted my mindset that it's okay. It's how all of us begin. I mean, when we learn how to walk, we look at mum and dad and we watch them walk. I mean, we emulate from the get-go.
It's true. And what's that saying? Imitation is the greatest form of flattery.
Well, this book says that's not true. That book says this is not true. Well, it does. It says hold on. Imitation is not flattery. Merely imitating your heroes is not flattering them. Transforming their work into something of your own is how you flatter them. Adding something to the world that only you can add. Yeah. So it isn't flattery, but again, it's like you copy to get started, but then you gradually are able to create your own uniqueness.
Yeah. Well, it's even when you look back at the Renaissance, when there was a massive art movement back then. It's even the artists like Michelangelo and Da Vinci, they would all learn from a master, and they'll do like 5-10 year apprenticeships where they would be at times tracing those pieces of work and literally copying those pieces of art or helping produce them, which would then lead to them eventually creating their own masterpieces off the back of that. And I think we see it everywhere, especially in the mainstream arts. Like even when you listen to music, when you watch movies, they're generally pretty similar. They're just a variation of something that's existed prior to that. And, you know, the thread of inspiration is usually pretty narrow from where that comes. Like, so how many artists say, oh yeah, I was inspired by the Beatles still, right? How many movie filmmakers are inspired by Scorsese and George Lucas or Steven Spielberg? And then you see another 1,000 offshoots of that. So I think it's cool to change that perspective that this is a natural part of creation.
But it's also kind of sad to realize that nothing is original anymore. I mean, that statement, is it completely true, you think? I mean, nothing is original anymore. I mean, aren't we original as human beings because there's no other person like me in the world? But then, you know, having read all the books we've read, we're actually a lot more similar than we think. You know, we feel like, oh, I'm suffering from such unique problems, but then gradually you work out we're all suffering from the same damn thing.
I think it depends on how you define originality, because I think there's always differences. Like even if I trace a piece of art as perfectly as I can, it won't be the same. There'll always be some level of difference, right? Now, maybe it's not true.
Unless you're a computer, because computers can copy exactly, right?
Yeah.
Whereas human beings aren't able to do that. You're right.
But even then, if you see a printed piece of artwork done by a computer, is it going to feel the same because it doesn't have the narrative and the storytelling and everything else behind the original piece? Like, I think there's always evolutions and a difference. Like, very, very rarely have you heard the same song twice that's exactly the same. Even when people play a cover of that exact same song, it never sounds exactly like it. So maybe there's nothing that's truly original, but I also think that everything is truly an evolution. Maybe that's my viewpoint on it.
I love the quote where the author quoted somebody else who said, everything that needs to be said has already been said, but since no one was listening, everything must be said again. I feel like things come across as original because of that. It comes across as original because we weren't listening the first time. And as a result of us not listening and as a result of us probably not remembering, therefore, when we hear things, we're like, wow, that sounds so original. This is such an original sound, especially when it comes to music. But it's just because maybe you haven't heard maybe you haven't heard the original. It's just, I thought that was such an interesting quote that really lends itself quite nicely to thought leadership, in that teachers, thought leaders, speakers, people that you follow on social media, they're generally all saying very similar things if you follow them closely, because like this person said, everything that needs to be said has already been said. It's like every single combination of words that could be put together has already been put together. It's a weird feeling still that, you know, that's strange.
Do you ever feel that when you're creating something and you're like, oh, has somebody already done this before? Am I just replicating it? But then the reality is, from what I've found, is even if you reshare it, people either haven't read the original piece that you referenced, they've maybe forgotten about it, it rejigs the memory. So, like I remember I've tried
No, I was just going to say, I remember when I first started doing keynote speaking and I thought, oh, I'm going to mix in magic and keynote speaking together. I bet no one in the world's done this before. This is so original. And I was in that kind of bubble for a while because I didn't search it online. And when I did search online and I saw that, there were magicians doing keynotes and magic since the 1980s, 1970s, I was so crushed. I was like, no, I thought I was the first one. However, what I will say is I was probably one of the first platinum blonde Asians to do magic.
Asian Australian,
Asian Australian, Vietnamese.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, I love it. But that's the thing. Even then, you're able to find, like I think we spoke about the book, The 22 Immutable Laws of Marketing, where that really hits on that point too, is that even though you might not be truly original, you can always find a niche where you can occupy that part of it. Like even when I look at what we're doing with this podcast right now, like we're not the first people to do a podcast. We're probably not the first people to do a book podcast, but then there'll be some niche that we're ticking off where it's like the first long form co-hosted book podcast with this selection of books that Australian based, some storytelling, some practical tips from those books. Like that will be our sentence niche that will get refined over time. But there's no doubt it ends up becoming original. Like there won't be anything else that's exactly what we're doing either.
And the niche is basically our 5 friends that we have. That's the niche. That's our niche.
Yeah. John, Rob, Samantha, shout out to you guys.
Do you know what's really sad?
This is what we're doing.
Did you just make up those names because you didn't have any friends, or are they actually real people?
Yeah, I didn't want to put the actual 5 people that are listening to it on the spot.
Because there isn't 5. Because there isn't. That's why you created such generic names. You've just outed us. Oh, gosh. We're just losers doing a podcast.
Hey, what's one of the lines in the book? It says, fake it till you make it. Right?
Well, let's bring that up.
Listeners until we make it. Yeah.
Well, let's bring that up because it's funny because some people look at the line "fake it till you make it" and they look at it as being a bad thing. They go, "Oh, that's being, you're not being authentic. You're lying to people because you're faking it." How do you feel about it? And what do you think about that line "fake it till you make it"?
I love it. My whole life has been based on faking it till I make it. I've never been good at anything ever, naturally. So I've literally I'm that person that just goes in to something that they're really bad at and then has this belief that if you just keep doing it, you'll get okay at it. So I don't even believe that I'm going to get good at it, but I'm like, I'll get okay at it. So I live by that mantra of faking it till you make it. Like whether it's doing this, running a business, whether it was early on in my career, like I remember being there, because if you don't have that mindset, I think you go in a little bit too underconfident and you don't really take a chance on a couple of things. Because the opposite side to fake it till you make it is imposter syndrome, which we all also feel, where when you do kind of make it, you kind of feel like, oh, I don't fit in here, or I faked it to making it. So it's got this strange contradiction and paradox, but I love it. Like if I'm sitting there feeling like I remember doing stand-up comedy and I was horrible at it, but it was just one of those things that I had to try. I'm still horrible at it, but it was one of those things that I wanted to do purely because I wanted to overcome that fear. And I remember watching Netflix and being like, how cool is that? Like that person goes up there and tells jokes. Like there can't be, surely there's nothing more vulnerable than doing that, because it's just binary, right? Like people are going to laugh or there's silence. And I remember finding this stand-up comedy course in Melbourne called School of Hard Knock Knocks, give them a shout out. And they did a 3-day course. And by the end of it, you end up doing a 5-minute bit in front of like 80 people. And I've done skydiving, I've bungee jumped, I've done all these other bits and pieces that are scary, having a kid. There's nothing that's been scarier than doing stand-up comedy for 5 minutes the first time. It is out of control.
I agree. I mean, I've spoken in stadiums with 40,000+ people. And I remember you dragged me out in Chicago when we went to a comedy night and I had to do like a 3-minute set. And I went, do you remember how many times I went to the toilet that night?
I've never seen you so scared and nervous.
I was so scared and nervous. And there was only a room of 8 people left by the time I got on. And that made it even more scary.
For sure.
There's something about stand-up comedy where you're right. The fake it till you make it really does apply because, there's a line in The Word of Magic you made me think about. And the line in The Word of Magic is that a magician is an actor playing the part of a magician. So magicians have to fake it till they make it, right? In that we are faking the magic until you are astonished and then we've made it. We've made it as an actor and you believed in the illusion and we made it. But you can't actually be a magician because they don't exist. But well, maybe they do, but I don't know of any that really exists. So if a magician is an actor playing the part of a magician, what that then means is that you're an actor playing the part of a whatever you are. So it's like you are a comedian. Sure, you're an actor playing the part of a comedian until you become a comedian, right? It's a fascinating quote that I think really applies here.
Well, go back through that journey because my stand-up comedy career was about 6 shows. So I don't think we can use that as a whole body of work.
Because you never made it.
It included 3 major international comedy festivals out of 6 shows. So come on.
Okay, so it did.
I partially faked it till I make it. But
well, you did. I think...
I'd love to hear your story though. At what point did you go from I'm going to be a keynote speaker or I'm going to be a magician? Because you've actually done it at a proper professional level to then when you then went from complete rookie novice to, oh, wow, I've actually faked it and made it.
Well, I think just to not take away from your glory, I think the fact that you did go to 3 international comedy whatever you call it, festivals. That's pretty amazing. I might have just done what I've done for longer, but I won't take away from your shine. I felt bad.
No, thank you.
Yeah, no worries.
It's a really nice, weak compliment. I appreciate it. It really boosted me up there.
It's what friends do.
Anything is possible.
Okay, well, let's take magic for example.
Yep.
I remember when I first started practicing magic, I wasn't very good yet, but I would go out on Friday nights into the city to perform magic because on Friday nights in Australia, the city, it opens late. So it opens till about 9 p.m. So after work, I would go to the city with a few friends. Now, at this point, I wouldn't classify us as magicians because we weren't professional magicians by any regards. But I remember what we used to say. And in saying this, it gave us confidence to actually walk up to people and perform. So what we'd say is we walk up to people, and this was absolute lie. We'd walk up to people and we say, hey, we've got a gig this weekend and we're just doing a bit of practice for our gig coming up. We're professional magicians and we'd love to show you a piece of magic. Because we found that when we just walk up to people and say, hey, do you want to see magic? People go, no, I don't know what this could be. This could be something terrible. However, when we gave it the context... No, what are you thinking?
He's going to drop his pants. He's going to drop his pants. That's going to be the trick. And I don't want to see that. So inappropriate.
It does sound like that's about to happen, doesn't it?
Such childish.
No, but it's true.
This is where my stand-up comedy career ended so quickly as well. This lowbrow rubbish.
Well, hey, I'm laughing. I think it's funny. I think it's hilarious. Yeah. Well, so we would say things like that. We would say, hey, look, we're professional magicians. We're about to do an event this weekend. We're doing a little bit of practice. We wanted to get the gig on the weekend. Like we genuinely were yearning for that. And we faked it in that sense, in that we were saying, yes, we're practicing for this gig we don't have. And I kid you not, about 6 to 8 weeks of doing this, then we actually started to get work on the weekends. I mean, I remember specifically, we're doing this in Rundle Mall in Adelaide. And at the end of performing this trick, because we primed it with, we're just practicing for a gig this weekend, one person asked us, how much do you guys charge to come out to a private function? I was like, what? They want to book us? And it was amazing because he then did book me for a small little gig at the finance firm that he ran.
How many gigs or mini street gigs had you done by that point before you got the approach for being booked?
It was about six to eight where I got booked on the street.
Yeah, okay.
And that was, and to me in my mind right now, that's such a clear example of fake it till you make it. Because I genuinely was faking it and then it led to a booked gig. And then at that point, once I did the professional booked gig, I felt professional. So now I was no longer faking it. So it's just, it's this really weird mental game we play with ourselves. We need validation before we feel we're a certain thing. It's like, at what point can I call myself an archer? I've got an archer. I've got a bow right here. right? Does that mean I'm an archer? Or does it mean I have to go win a state level competition to be able to call myself an archer? You know, it's to me, what gives you the right to call yourself the thing that you're doing? I don't know. What is it, Ali?
Once it's on LinkedIn.
Yeah, once it's on LinkedIn. Oh man, I should put archer on there on LinkedIn. I should put magician, archer, camping, professional camper, professional fire starter. I love campfires. Oh, it's amazing. Dude, I even last night I was grooming my dog. So I put dog groomer as well on there. I watch cars also.
I think we need to go update our LinkedIn for sure. Like I've got Lego enthusiast. That's it. No, but yeah.
Great husband.
And then when going back to the magic example. So was there a moment, because I think what happens as well with a lot of people is maybe they'll try that once or twice and then they'll have a negative experience and then they'll retreat because that one person will be like, no, piss off. I don't want to hear your magic. And then that whole like, oh, what? I've been practicing this trick for 4 years and I finally got the coach to go and practice it in front of you and now you don't want to see it. And then you've teased me about it or you haven't liked it. How do you think people overcome that? Because to me, that feels like the big difference between those who actually end up faking it till they make it versus those that don't due to, say, fear or doubt.
How do they overcome that? I think it's many things. And I'd love to hear your thoughts as well. I mean, from my point of view, thinking back to the magic, because you know, when we first did this, we were gross teenagers. We had dirt under our fingernails. We were slightly greasy. You know, I dressed terribly, and you walk up to people, you didn't think about your breath, and you just spoke really awkwardly, and I had acne all over my face, and it's just like, it just wasn't. So 7 out of 10 people would say no when we walked up to them.
Yeah,
and what kept us going? I mean, I think it was my desire to create astonishment. The feeling when you amaze someone feels great, man. I mean, and I think people might feel this in business as well. When you do something great for a client and they love it. I mean, not just them saying, "Hey, that was really good," but them going, "Oh my, that was amazing. This was the best thing." Like that is. When you get a sense of that, when the 7 say no and the 3 say yes, and then out of the 3 that said yes, you were able to astonish one of them, that one feeling of astonishment that you're able to create for others is so intoxicating. It's so euphoric that it makes you go, oh, okay, suffering from 7 no's, 2 fails, and to get 1 win is worth it. Whereas I think if you just failed, if you failed 10 out of 10 times, week after week, year after year, I don't know if anything will keep you going at that point. I mean, far out. I mean, you got to get a little taste of something. So I think the word that I was looking for that I wasn't able to find, but I'm able to find now is progress. Some form of progress and some form of small win.
Yeah. Momentum. It builds momentum because then when you got booked, then you get a little bit more confident. Then you get a little bit better. You practice a bit harder. You get booked again, and then it leads to something else, right? Like I think there's some magic in that. Pardon the pun around just giving it a go for a consistent period of time, right?
I would also say doing it with other people. It was. I did it with my cousin Hung, my cousin Dong, and also my cousin Dan. So I did it and a friend of mine named Hui. So there were 5 of us. And it was interesting to see each person had a different level of resistance to failure, resilience, different resilience. And one of my cousins, Hung, he had it would crush him when people said no. And we'd have to all sit down and counsel him and say, "Hey man, like it's okay. Don't worry. Let's try again." And it would just crush him. And I think, we used to be caught up on the question. We used to say, who could say no to magic? I mean, magic is one of the best experiences ever. How could anyone say no to this? And then we learned the most powerful lesson ever, was that people weren't saying no to the magic. They were saying no to us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think
so
it's
then we were like,
natural
oh. Yeah.
Well, it's like when anyone walks up to you in the middle of the street and they're like, I want to show you something. Your first reaction is going to be skepticism. Like, why is somebody coming up? Right. Like, I think it's like, that's why I admire street magicians so much as well. Like, just how they put themselves out there.
Well, street performers in general.
Yeah. Yeah. Street performers. Like, it's so cool. And it's so, the environment's so unexpected. Like, you don't know whether it's going to rain, like, is a kid going to come running out at you? Like, it's not a controlled environment. So it takes a fair bit of courage, but yeah, that's cool. I think you hit on some really awesome points there around progress, surprising people, resistance to failure,
Company.
and embracing it.
Yeah.
I think that's
and we filmed it.
Filmed
it. We filmed all of it.
Yeah.
And by filming it, we were able to review it. And that's when, I mean, for us to be able to learn that we can't just say, hey, can I show you some magic? To learning how to say, hey, we've got a professional magic gig this weekend. Do you mind if we practice a few magic tricks with you? Yep. I mean, that line alone increased our conversion rate dramatically. But I mean, keeping to the theme of the book, it's interesting that we had to fake it to feel more confident. Yep. Faking it made us feel more confident. And the question I originally asked you before was, at what point can we claim to be what it is that we are doing? It's like, when can I call myself an archer? I wanted to get your thoughts on that. When can you call yourself a golfer? You know, when does that transition process happen? Because the faking until you make it part, the faking it part happens before. And then when you, whatever that thing is, all of a sudden when that happens, then you go, oh yeah, I'm a golfer.
Yeah.
Well, would you say you're a golfer?
I think it's irrelevant. So I'm going to go a little bit out there, right? Because you can call yourself whatever you want, right? Okay. That's an internal driver. So I'd view that as, if you, like right now, if you call yourself an archer, that's fine. I think if you want it, I think what you mean is, when is it adequate or normal to do that? I think it's maybe when you get some external recognition of some sort. Right. So when your coach tells you, wow, you're now an archer, or one of your friends are like, hey, Vin's the archery guy. Like, I'm going to go to him to get advice on archery now because he's that person. Or as you said, you win a competition or an award for it, maybe. Like, so I think there's different milestones as well, because the beautiful thing about calling yourself something is that there's no real defined endpoint. Like I feel like if you play a round of golf, you can call yourself a golfer. I'm not going to take any offense to that. That's perfectly fine. But then if somebody said, who's the first person you think of when you go the word golfer, who is it? You're then probably going to think of Tiger Woods. Like, I'm not going to think of that person who's played one round. So there's a very big spectrum. And the beautiful thing nowadays is that we live in a world where you literally can call yourself whatever you want, and you can do it publicly, and no one's probably going to call you out on it. So the opportunity to actually fake it as you make it. Like, I love the concept of influencers. Like, that's literally like, I'm going to take enough photos of myself in a different variety of clothing, and I will influence you off the back of that. Like, what an awesome, like, I give that credit. Like, people sit there and you hear the criticisms that say the Kardashians get. You know, and it's like, oh, they just lucked out and, you know, there's no real skill or talent. I say bullshit to that. I think that the Kardashians, look, I'm not fans of them and I don't align with whatever it is that they're doing, but you've got to give credit where it's due, because to be the first people to completely monetize social media as a platform and to have it done by your whole family, you know, like their mum, Kris Jenner, is an absolute genius how she's created that ecosystem that essentially we're the first people to commercialize products and then making their own products and owning it and turning it into $1 billion business. Like, imagine what they were copying at the beginning in terms of, why are you guys even famous? You don't even do anything. Like, it's just a show off your life. Like, all of these criticisms on it, I think it's such a cool example of nearly faking it till you make it. But
it's interesting how you, yeah, definitely. I mean, back to that point of, you know, when can you call yourself that thing? You mentioning how it's externally driven. When you get a little bit of that external feedback, I think also internally, when you decide you're going to be a certain person. It's like for me, when I decided to get the bow and arrow and to get my recurve bow, on the day I decided to do it, I decided to do it. I mean, I feel as if, and hopefully this archers are listening to this. You're not an archer. But to me, on the day I decided to do this, I deemed myself to be an archer. That's the day. I feel like internally it can be driven too. I think it's a mix of internal and external. And if you only have one, you're kind of left a little bit lopsided. You kind of go, oh, am I though? So I think you've got to have both. You've got to internally decide, no, this is who I want to become. This is who I am as of now. And then a little bit of that external feedback as well. And I think the balance of the two is when you go, oh yeah, I'm a golfer, I'm an archer, I'm a magician.
Yep.
So it's probably a bit of both, isn't it? Yeah,
for sure. Like, and I think it's more that I really think it is, the more that we speak about this, it's that internal feeling of when you get past imposter syndrome or partially past it. Then I think you hit the next milestone, right? Like,
and then when you reach for the next milestone after that, you feel imposter syndrome again.
Yeah, for sure. It's just a cycle.
It's a cycle, yeah.
Going. It'd be the same even when, like the sports analogy, like that player will become the best high school player. Then they'll go to college. But now all of a sudden they're at the bottom of the food chain. So they're still a basketballer, but now they're at the bottom. Then they go through college. They might be one of the top ranked draft prospects for the NBA. So now they've hit the top of the college game. Now they're not an imposter anymore in the college system. But then they go into the NBA. They've started at the bottom again. Like, oh, where do I fit? How am I going to be a decent rookie? Then you have to get like a 5-year career, a 10-year career. Then it's like, all right, am I a Hall of Fame player? Then out of the Hall of Fame, where do I sit there? Am I an imposter in the Hall of Fame? Am I one of the greats, or am I just like the bottom person? And like, so you can probably mess with your own head throughout every single part of the development journey if you really want to punish yourself that way, or you can just enjoy doing what you do and call yourself whatever you want.
Well, I think the next point to that then is, what do you want to fake? Right? Yeah. It's an interesting question to ask yourself, is that if you already feel comfortable with who you are, and if you're looking to grow from where you are currently, then what are you going to fake? What would you fake moving forward if we start to use this into our vocab? What would you fake next?
It's such a good question. I hate that you asked that, because I was thinking about that answer even when I was reading the book. Whereas I think 4 or 5 years ago, I had more clarity around who I wanted to try to emulate and fake. Right? Like, even when I look at yourself, like I remember seeing you 4 or 5 years ago and being like, wow, what a cool way to like communicate messages, watching how you did keynote speaking and even the things that we're doing right now. So that was probably a journey that I was looking at 4 or 5 years ago around improving communication skills and storytelling and sharing lessons that we learn. Whereas now it feels like, all right, that's progressed a little bit. Has it been fake till you made it? Who knows? But it's a lot more developed than what it was before. So that was an emulation that I looked at and a blueprint. I always look at it like as blueprints. I remember reading, we've spoken about Tim Ferriss's The 4-Hour Work Week. And I remember working at the time and reading that book and being like, here's another blueprint. Can you then fake entrepreneurship, right? Starting a passion-driven business and getting that happening. So that was a blueprint that I wanted to then fake. I remember looking at people like, you'd look at Branson and Steve Jobs as entrepreneurs as it sort of grew. And it's like, all right, well, how do you then keep creating and innovating products and growing? So then you look at their blueprint around what they did. So I'm a big fan of finding blueprints. At the moment, I think one that I'm probably looking at a lot of books and a lot of authors. I'm pretty interested in writing now. So that might be one. Like, I don't think I can call myself an author, and I'd love to one day call myself an author at some point in the next 5 or 10 years. And that's even a journey that I'm pretty keen to share as that happens, like the whole faking it till you make it experience. Because I think there's something really special in that too, is we don't see enough off the beginning of the journey where people were faking it and then how it then progressed into that reality. Because I think that's inspiring for a lot of people to then be like, oh, wow, like that person who was so shit at that thing, we watched them like learn and fail and fall over live. And then it ended up being a best-selling book or whatever it is. Like, I think
we normally see them once they make it. We don't see the fake it journey.
Yeah. And it's hard to document something when you're crap at it too, because you're focusing on what you're doing. You can't, like, I know you're pretty good at this. You videotape your whole life.
Well,
It's
no,
like the
I mean,
Truman Show.
what I was going to bring up was that the hard thing about documenting the fake it part is that, let's say you're, I don't know, say your business is in the realm of, I don't know, say this is a terrible example, but say you're an electrician. You can't exactly fake it until you make it, because people will die, right? It's, there is, yeah, exactly. I mean, there are skills you have to acquire, the degrees you need to get.
It's true.
But then, yeah, I mean, well, one thing I was going to say was that the fake it journey, I think the word fake it is almost the wrong word, because anytime I think about it, it kind of creates this in my head where it's like, that doesn't sound right. And I think it's because the word fake isn't the right word. It's emulate until you make it. It's
It's learn.
Yeah.
It's learn.
Yeah. Learn until you make it. And
even the word steal, right? Like the word stealing like an artist. That concept, like the word steal gives it a negative connotation, because you're not stealing, you're emulate. Like you're learning from others who are experts at what they do. And then you're breaking down the foundations of that skill. Right? Like if you think about it, no one wants to go out there and be like, oh, I'm the best imitation of this person. Everyone wants to be their own individual version within that vocation. You know, even when you use the electrician example, or you use the surgeon, the elements of fake it till you make it and steal like an artist still apply, because the curriculum that they're learning is essentially faking it. They're copying what other electricians have done prior to them to get an electrician a qualification to then perform the works required by an electrician. It's the same with the surgeon. Like, how do you practice the surgeries, right? Like, you do it on cadavers, and you do it on, you use the board game Operation is obviously one of the things that they would be using a lot. And you go and then you do your apprenticeship and your internship after you graduate, where you're being supervised. Like, it's going to be 5, 10, 15 years before you actually perform a real surgery. And while you were saying that, it just made me think that, you know, the first time a surgeon goes out and does surgery, it is a case of faking it until you make it. Even though you have the skill set required and the knowledge and everything, that first time you're doing it, you're still kind of faking it, because you've never done it before. You know, if you've never genuinely done it before, and then after the first time, you get a bit of that external validation, you get a bit of that internal validation, and you start to go, yes, I'm now a surgeon. So we always have to go through that process, which brings me to another point in the book that the author makes. And it's that he says, make things, know thyself. It's the act of making things and doing our own work that we figure out who we are. You are ready. Start making stuff. And again, it's bringing us to the point that as we make, we discover, and we're able to get to know ourselves. Whereas I think a lot of people want to know who they are. And I wrote down an analogy that I thought of. It sounded better when I wrote it, but now repeating it, it kind of seems stupid. But it's like you knowing yourself is like a brick wall, and you can't know yourself you can't know yourself within a brick. You are the wall, and the act of putting the wall together is the act of you getting to know you. Does that make sense? I think it's a series of actions, what I'm trying to say, that leads us to gradually being able to get to know ourselves. And key word there is action. Because we were both young once, and we know what it's like. I mean, you don't know what you want to be when you grow up. You don't know what you want to do. And then what do? How do you solve this universal problem? You try things, you do things. And as you try things and you do things, you go, oh, I hate that. And people often then very easily think, oh, if I did something and I didn't like it, it's a complete waste of time. It's not. It's a complete waste of time if you keep doing it, but it's not a complete waste of time if you change and you do something else. It's like in algebra. How do you solve for X? Well, you have to work out what the other variables are and work out what one variable is at a time, and then you gradually can solve for X, which is what you want to do later. For sure. And I think even when you look at just the trends within some of the books that we've been reviewing over the last 16, 17 episodes, there's so much off this, which is around taking action, forming habits, mastering skills, trying things, playing, like if you look at even our DNA, I think we really align with this concept of it's fine. Like I hate it when people have that notion of themselves that, oh, I'm not that person. I can never be that person. I can't do that. And I always like questioning that because I'm like, well, you don't know yet until you've tried, like come back. Like one of the things that I often find myself saying, I'm like, do whatever that thing was for 20 hours and then come back and see how you feel about it. Like, don't do it for an hour or 2 hours or 3 hours. Like, and I remember a real practical example of this was I was mucking around with the Rubik's Cube a year or two ago. And I remember the first hour or two when you sit there and you've never really played with a Rubik's Cube before. It's like, oh, well, I'm never going to be able to remember these algorithms and be able to figure it out and the sequencing to do it. So that 1 to 2 hours, I'm guessing it wipes out 80 to 85% of people that are going to ever pick up a Rubik's Cube and they'll have it in their house.
I was one of them.
Made. Yep. Yeah. It's about the 3 hour mark or 4 hour mark, those algorithms start taking form. And then you remember, all right, this is the first step. This is the second step. This is the third step. And you do it with the piece of paper and the formula. And then after maybe 5 hours or 6 hours, you can do it off paper. After about 8 hours, you can now do it. You can remember all of the formulas and you can start doing it by yourself. After about 10 hours, you can then probably start improving speed on it. And it would be the same with golf. It would be the same with archery. It would be the same with magic. Like the amount of times I've looked at a magic trick and then I've seen the descriptions of how to perform it, I'm like, I want to learn this in 5 minutes. I don't want this to take 10 hours for me to do it even half poorly. Whereas I think that's the breaking point, is if you can get past that initial phase where your brain will say it's not worth us committing to this because this thing is stupid. If you can get past that, generally you'll be able to learn the skill to some extent, maybe to at least 80% of the ability required to perform it.
You just clarified a lesson in Buddhism for me. Strangely enough, in you saying that.
That's exactly what I was going for. That's exactly what I was going for to start with that. I was
so what lesson was that, Ali?
Earlier.
So what lesson were you trying to go for in Buddhism? Why don't you explain? Why don't you go ahead and explain?
Part of Buddhism is letting the student then also share what it is that they've learned.
No, okay. Terrible. The lesson you clarified for me was, and my mum and dad are devout Buddhists. This is why I bring this up. And they always said to me that in Buddhism, it says that, life is suffering. And a big part of life is suffering. We just have to choose what to suffer for. What are we willing to suffer for? And so to me, learning how to do a Rubik's Cube, learning archery, learning how to play golf, there's a degree and element of suffering involved there. When you're just starting to learn, it genuinely is a form of suffering when it comes to archery. I started learning shooting a recurve bow with a 32-pound, limbs. And the first 10 times I pulled it, my shoulders, my back, my lower back, everything was sore, genuinely suffering. And to me, I think in life, like it finally makes sense to me. Okay. So everything is a form of suffering in terms of being a parent is suffering. I mean, I've seen sometimes my wife follows some people on Instagram, and some of these parents make it seem like it's always amazing and every day is positive. I'm like, that is a load of crap. That is not true. And
you're lying.
You're suffering. You're lying. And then I'd love to create a real parenting Instagram and just show suffering. And to me, thank you for making that make sense for me, because I always thought, what does that really mean? Life's not suffering. And when they first told me, I was like, that is a terrible statement. It's not suffering. Life's great. But it truly is. And especially when it comes to learning things, far out do we suffer when we're a beginner.
Yeah.
Like stand-up comedy. When you made me do that 3-minute set in Chicago, dude, I was suffering for like an hour before I went on stage and suffered on the 3 minutes on stage. And then therefore after that, I couldn't, you made me do this just before a keynote of mine the next day in Chicago. So I lost all my confidence. I was like, I'm not funny. No one likes me. No one's going to like my keynote. So
no one's gonna, even though you've done it 100 times, it's like no one's gonna like my keynote. Like all of a sudden you've lost all your abilities.
Yeah. And when I got that first laugh that next day during my keynote, I was like, they like me. It's okay.
The world is restored back to its normal. Yeah, you're right.
This is how it should be.
I love how you shape that lesson as well. Because even for me now, when I look at new things, I'm going to use that as a little bit of a trigger point. That I want to learn this, but what degree of and I might even reshape it a little bit, because the word suffering will just make me get lazy about it. And it's like, what degree of growth or discomfort am I willing to go to get that result?
Yeah. I mean,
because I don't
thought that with archery.
Think about it. Yeah. I think we just end up doing
that about
things.
Archery. Well, it depends what though, because archery is really frustrating and physically demanding. Yep. Because for me to get my form right took me about a month of shooting every day. And I don't even think my form is that perfect yet. But it's suffering in that it's mental suffering, because you're frustrated. You film yourself from 4 different bloody angles, and then you have to put it together, put it on the computer and look at your form, and then look at your form versus, your coach's form, and try to identify where you're going wrong. So there's mental agony and mental effort. And then after that, there's the physical agony of it. Yeah. And you've really got to think about...
You're talking about something here that I think you do that's very uncommon. And it's why I feel like you can master skills a lot quicker. So go through your process of how you're approaching archery so people can get an insight into a way of developing a skill. Because I know we haven't actually spoken about this too much. I know you've been doing archery, but I haven't dug deep into your approach. I'd love you to break it down into how extreme, because my guess is on a level of 1 to 10, you're sitting at least an 8 on level of into this and extreme. So I'd love you to break that down.
I'm pretty into it. Yeah, I'm pretty into it. Well, it was triggered, this whole archery thing, because I watched a zombie movie and I realized how important it is to have the skill of being an archer, because you're not limited to ammunition. You can shoot the zombie in the head and retrieve the arrow, and then you've got unlimited ammo.
So your why is strong. Yeah, the why behind it is a big tick.
Absolutely. Ali, if you ever turned into a zombie, I would not hesitate. Let's just I would, even if you weren't bitten, you'd get
I was hoping you'd say the other way, like if there was a zombie apocalypse, Ali, like come to our place, I'll look after you. But no, it was the other way. You actually wanted to just end my life. All right, fair enough.
Absolutely. Food, for food purposes.
So step 1, you need a strong why.
You always eat Tim Tams. No, look. Here's the thing. I've always, it's like, let's not go down the rabbit hole.
Okay.
Because it's turned into cannibalism. But I got the bow, and I point over there because the bow's over there, and I might bring it on screen because it's so sexy.
Yeah.
But I got it because I wanted to find a hobby that I could play with, where I go out and I just play and I have a good time, and there's no commercial thing to it. There's no me trying to monetize it. There's nothing. It's just for me. It's just for me to be able to enjoy. And that's why I got into it, because I wanted to find a hobby and a passion. And I think during this pandemic, you're in Melbourne, I'm in South Australia, Adelaide. We're both currently still locked down. And having a hobby that I can work on really helps with my level of happiness through life, especially during lockdown. And the moment I got the bow, the moment I got this, the first thing I did was I watched every single video I could on YouTube about how to shoot a recurve bow. I learned everything I could for recurve shooting. I read a book as well on recurve shooting. And then after that, I tried to apply some of it. And then I filmed it and I reviewed myself.
So how many hours of research prior to shooting your first arrow, do you think?
Before I even bought the bow, I was reading about bows. I would say YouTube videos and reading about it. Oh, I'd spent close to maybe 20 hours.
Okay.
When I obsess over these things, about 20 hours of obsessing over it, looking at which branded bow, which kind of stabilizers I want, which sights I want, why one is better than the other. So I did a ton of research. And then once I did that research, I took the action and I bought it. Yep. And then once I bought it, I started to apply the lessons of form and the stance and how to draw and how to set. So I went through all of that. And then after I learned all of that, I applied it, I filmed it, I reviewed it.
Yep.
And then I reviewed it and I go, oh, right now my anchor point is off. So then I would fix my anchor point. And then after that, I reached out to 2016 gold medalist for archery.
Here we go.
And they didn't reply. And I was like, damn you're too good. And I thought, silver medalist is good too. So I reached out to a silver medalist Olympian, Jake Kaminsky from the USA. And he replied, and I'm getting him to review my form videos. So he started reviewing my form videos. And to me, first, do your own due diligence, obviously. Learn yourself as much as you can before you ask questions. That's one of the things that this book actually recommends. Before you ask a question, do the research. Try to find the answer yourself. So to me, do that, review it, apply, review it, apply, review it, apply, and then get the best expert you can get access to. Because I can tell you from the day that I got Jake to review my form, the very next day, my grouping of arrows, unbelievable. Unbelievable. People who are experts and have done what they've done for 20 years can see things that you can't see as a beginner. And far out when you get that, it's and that's where I'm at right now. Cool. Right now, I'm just, every month I film a sequence of my videos and I send it to Jake, and he's able to review it, and I improve immensely.
And do you have goals? Like, is there, with archery, how can you measure your progress?
It's the groupings. So basically I track all my groupings with my phone. I just, I do shots from 10 meters, 20 meters, 30 meters, 50 meters, and I track my progress as I go. Those random photos I send you of, look at this, all these arrows are right. The grouping is great. So I track my progress via the groupings, and I've got these sheets that are targets, and I track my score. So it's a very, you can track yourself very accurately.
And where would you say, because I love what you just broke down there, that concept of, for anyone out there that's potentially looking at a vocation like archery or a passion like that, you break that down so nicely in terms of, all right, well, you can get 20, 50 hours of resources, probably just off YouTube. It's not going to be structured for you, but you can get the basic foundation. So I'm guessing
some of them are structured really well. I mean,
that's
the people I jumped on YouTube to watch, they structured it really well. And one of the guys is straight out of Melbourne.
Yep. Perfect, right? Yeah. So even after that initial research, by the time you bought the bow, you weren't really going in blind. You knew at least you had a foundational level of knowledge around how to shoot the arrow. So perfect. So you've got that. Then you go into your testing and reiteration phase, call it, where now you're applying the knowledge, you're then reviewing it with videotape, you're applying it, reviewing it, applying it, reviewing it. You do that for a period of time, and then you go to expert. So that's the formula, right? Yeah. And then you're at the expert level when you start plateauing with your own knowledge that you've got at the moment, and you're not seeing the groupings change that much.
Yes.
They're decent, but they're not really changing too much. And then you go to the expert, and then it just game changes it, because the expert now puts together all the foundational knowledge and gives you what you need to go to the next level.
Let me grab something real quick.
Yeah.
Okay, can't find it, and I don't want to stall for too long, otherwise things will get weird. But it's
probably not going to help all the people listening to it as audio.
No, it doesn't help all the people. But I was trying to find an arrow that I had, but I think my son took it to play with it. Yeah. But the moment I got the coaching, I split an arrow.
Yeah, wow.
So it means I shot 2 arrows in the exact same spot. My grouping started to get so tight. Yeah. And it's happened twice to me now. And that would have never happened beforehand, because I was spraying the target. Cool. And and then it just made me think, how many other areas of life is this applicable to? All other areas of life. So then immediately after I did that with archery, I immediately got a PT, a personal trainer. Shout out to Adam Murphy, who's an amazing, he was one of the strength trainers for the Adelaide 36ers. For the basketball team. And he's an unbelievable PT. He gave me a workout that's going to help me build more back strength. And now when I pull a 32-pound bow after his training for about a month, I can shoot for hours on end without feeling any soreness. So to me, I never understood the value of a coach like I feel I do now in the last two examples for archery and for strength training. It's been unreal.
Yep. And I think that
I used to think, I don't want to spend money. Yeah.
I think for the listeners out there though, that the formula that you apply to learning, I think is one of the best in terms of rapid mastery of skill. Like it takes a high level of involvement and investment, but for people out there that want to fast track it, I think that method that you just explained, there's nothing better than it. See, I do it. I go the other way. I like dabbling, right? So when I learn and pick up a skill, I'll go in with very little expectation because I want it to feel like I can always exceed. Like I want to always surprise myself as I'm learning that skill, even if I'm doing it poorly, rather than trying to master it straight away. And then I'll do it over a period of time. And then hopefully if all the dots then combine, then I'll have a relatively decent level of mastery. So I won't do it. I'll try to get to about 80% of conceptualizing whatever it is. And then I'll make a decision of, okay, how far am I willing to suffer for that thing? So I leave a lot unfinished. And then I might come back to it in a couple of years' time, or I'll let it sitting there and play a little bit more variety with it. So it's more of a generalist type of mentality where I'm just trying a vast variety of things, and then dabbling, coming back, dabbling, and then slowly, hopefully there'll be some sort of improvement. But I have learned also from you when it gets to something that I'm really into now, I've stolen from you that methodology of go and find somebody who's really good at it. So for the things like that I take really seriously, like say business, for example, we'll have some of the best advisors coming in and giving us expert advice and coaching. But yeah, I love your formula of how you acquire and develop a skill. But for other people out there that are listening and they're like, oh, well, I want to try something, but I don't want to go full Vinh and spend, 50 hours on YouTube or get the best coach, like a silver medalist coach. Like that's one option. The other option is just go and give it a go. Like at least get started. Use the basics of that where you could do your own self-review and iteration. You can take it slow, but I think it's more about get out of the mindset that I can't do this or it's not for me, because 3 months ago, whatever, you weren't an archer. Whereas now I think if you're getting coached by a silver medalist archer, you've got those groupings, you're there. Your question before when you asked whether you're an archer or not, I'm saying, yeah, you're an archer. I think you've done enough work there to be an archer.
And I am effective at a 20-meter range, quite precise. Yep. So if there's a zombie apocalypse, my diameter that I can patrol is 20 meters. So
you can't snipe at them from like 50, but 20 meters. No.
Awesome. At 50 meters, it's friendly fire for sure. Yeah. Friends are gonna get hurt, but at 20 meters, the zombie is dead. Yeah, awesome. Yeah. So that's a pretty cool tick box. Like as life goals go, not many people can say I can shoot a zombie with the bow and arrow from 20 meters. At 20 meters. Yeah. With a 95% level of certainty that I'm going to hit them. Well, that's a great milestone. It really is. I should celebrate it later. Yeah. But that's got to go on your LinkedIn. Yeah. I love it in brackets, effective only at 20 meters. You're also the type of person where I wouldn't be surprised that like Brisbane 2032 at the Olympics, Vinh Giang sitting there competing for a medal. But because you've gone so all out on it. I reached out to a few people and I realized that Dave Barnes, who is the current Olympian for archery for Australia, is, I worked out he is a client of my accountant's, and my accountant's going to be able to set up a lunch for us to be able to have lunch together. So to me, I just love, to me, a huge part of pursuing these new things, I love connecting with people. Connection is one of the things that keeps me inspired because, back to one thing you said before, while you're on your journey of fake it till you make it, while you're on your journey of emulation, what keeps you going when you fail? And to me, what keeps me going is having inspirations, having people that inspire me, being able to have access to people like this, even if it's a few. I mean, I remember I sent to you when the silver medalist replied to me. I was like, oh my God, Ali, you replied to me. You agreed to coach me. But it's like, so to me, you have to create your own inspiration that becomes your fuel source when things get hard. Because it's not like inspiration just comes. You have to find it, especially when you need it most. You know, if you're sitting there waiting, then man, you are doomed. But if you understand that you have to keep creating inspiration for it to happen.
Yeah, it's cool.
So to me,
the other thing, just as you were saying that's a bit of a lesson there, is I love how you're not intimidated by going to that top level expert and then not feeling inadequate while they're then teaching you. Because I think that's the other part. When people are learning a skill, and I've seen this a lot, they'll be like, oh, I'm just so far away from my coach's ability or what their expectation is for me to achieve. And then there's that level of intimidation. Like some people would rather go to Joe's archery down the road that he does out the back of his shed, where he's never won a silver medal and just has a couple of bows and shoots around, but he can teach you the basics, because they'll feel more comfortable feeling like, oh, this is more at my level. And I think it's very cool that you go for the top level. We see it a lot with golf coaching as well. But like there's a pretty big discrepancy between a very, very good golf coach and a trainee golf pro that's maybe at your local club. Like the ones that are the top level, that are training the top professionals, like they're at that level because they can see things that the others can't. They have techniques and they have ways to communicate the message in a different way. They've done the work to acquire that knowledge. And I think that's a really important one when you are looking for a coach or somebody to emulate. Like find somebody that's really proven, that's coached the best players, that's achieved that result at the highest level, because there's proof there in the pudding that they're going to be able to help you out a little bit more.
Yeah. And then to me, it's worth it for me because it inspires me.
Yeah.
Cool. Because look, again, nothing wrong with going down to Joe's archery, but that doesn't inspire me. You know, if that does inspire you, then great. Whatever it is that inspires you. I think, you know, I was saying to my wife the other day, we had a morning where, you know, we had some tough situations going on in our family, and we woke up that day and we just didn't feel like doing anything. And I remember her saying to me, I just don't feel like doing anything today. I'm like, yeah, me too. And I reflected on that for like a week, because it took us a good few solid days to get out of the rut we were in. And I find that even when you're going through a really tough time, it's not that you don't want to do things. It's that you don't have the motivation and inspiration to do anything. And if you allow yourself to sit in that space, you'll stay there. And you have to inspire yourself to get out of it. And I remember what I did was I went through all our old stuff, and I found like an empty photo album, and I found a little printer that prints photos, and I gathered a few of these little things, and I sat down with my wife and go, hey, why don't we sit down and scrapbook some of our favorite memories? And I got like some colored pencils and everything, and I got it out. So it took a lot of effort doing that when I felt all crappy. But then when I got all the gear together, I spread the table out, we sat down, that inspired us to do something. And then we did it and we felt better and we laughed and we reminisced on memories. And, you know, it's like, to me, you have to be conscious that inspiration is something that you have to actively seek, and it takes effort. So I do these things because genuinely it creates inspiration for me.
Yeah, it's cool.
And so drawing it all the way back real quick, back to what we were saying, is that when you do things and you make things, you get to know yourself better. And that's the game we're all playing. We are all playing the game of trying to get to know ourselves better so that we can do things that are aligned with who we are, so that we can feel good, so that we enjoy this experience in life. I mean, there's nothing worse than not knowing who you are, and as a result, doing all these things that are not aligned with who you are, and then ending up in a place you don't want to be.
Yep. Yeah, it's true. And just as you were saying that, I was thinking back to our last episode where we spoke about the Sapiens episode, where we spoke about energy. And that was a game changer for me, because I was finding myself going more into a pathway of contentment, because I felt like a lot of those items and passions and stuff had been explored. And I was getting worried that if I'm going to be on an endless searching for passions and thrills, at some point I'm going to run out of them. And I was weighing all that, and I've been sort of playing around with that for the last 6 months or so, 12 months, where it's like, all right, well, how do you practice contentment? You know, like whether that's through just appreciation of everything that's currently in play versus how do you then balance that with actually taking action and then moving forward? And our energy chat and managing your energy was something that was a little bit of a game changer there. Because after it, I started realizing, well, it's overthinking it. Like if you get too detached, call it, or too content, for me personally, I was finding like that's not really resulting in me feeling like I'm adding the value that I need to add to myself and the people around me. Like it's great. Like internally, I could just sit there and just be in a Zen state all day, but it felt like I'm not at that point yet where I just want to be completely in that zone. Whereas, so I had to go back to the drawing board and be like, all right, well, how do you get that energy going, the vibrations going, the things that we spoke about, to then be like, all right, to start taking action. And then funnily enough, as you start just making moves, doing things, taking action, it just colors in everything. Like it goes from being, oh, I'm a bit misaligned, or I don't have clarity, or I don't really know what I'm doing, to all of those dots and the energy that you're putting into things, they just start creating things. Like I love Asana, the project management tool. I have all ideas and stuff in there. So I'm really lucky that there's 4 or 5 years worth of ideas, concepts, actions. So that was one of the first actions that I took, is I just started making a list of all the different bits and pieces that I could potentially act upon over the next 2 to 3 months, and then listing those down. And then just over the past, since we did that episode, like just starting to act on those things. And then they're resulting in other bits and pieces that were even unforeseen. You know, like it will end up resulting in a meeting, a coffee catch up, trying a new move within the business, playing around with a new hobby, working on, you know, going for a longer walk, listening to a book for a bit longer, whatever that is. It just starts generating more momentum, more energy. And I think that there's power in that as well. So if you're out there and, you know, even with the pandemic and you're struggling with clarity or motivation or energy, just start doing shit. You know?
Yeah.
And it's such a cool message in this book is do stuff. Don't overthink it. If you don't have enough in there, and then for other people, it might be the other way. They've got too many things and they need to actually take some stuff away. They need to subtract from it and simplify things a little bit so they can do the things that are more important. But if you're in a bit of a meh type of position or you're looking for some inspiration, this is potentially the formula for that.
I'll give you one more example at the risk of being nauseating. Is that when we were in South Australia, we were announced that we're having a lockdown last week. You know, I remember thinking, part of me was thinking, oh no, I mean, I had gigs in Sydney, I had things booked, but Sydney was locked down. Then I had an event in Adelaide, all cancelled, and plans for the family all cancelled. We're going to go camping and everything. And then I remember sitting there going, yeah, okay, lack inspiration. This is lame. And then just kind of felt shitty for a little bit. But then I thought, I went out to the car, I got the tent, I got the, you know, all the mats, I got the sleeping bags, I got the everything. I cleared the yard, I mowed the lawn, and then I put up the tent. I blew up the mattresses, I hung the lights, I put down the guy lines, I did everything. And then all of a sudden that generated energy in the house. You know, my wife started getting excited. We got this little new toasty thing that we can put into the fire to toast, you know, ham and cheese, tomato toasties, and Xander got pumped. And so to me, it's amazing the value of just taking some action and making some things happen to build a little bit of that momentum. It's just amazing what that does. And you made me think of one more thing. I started doing Lego with my son. And I gradually will do the Lego Jeep that you bought me. I will. But right now I'm doing little animal Legos, which are, you know, they are about maybe 15 pieces to complete, you know, 12 moves to complete, 15 moves to complete. And I remember my son looking at it at the start, Xander, and you'd see him feel very overwhelmed because, there's just, you know, there's too many things, there's too many pieces. But then as I just looked through the instructions one at a time with him, handed him the piece that he's got to put on, he puts it on. And slowly as the piece gets put together, I see him gradually get more and more excited and more confident. And I think that's the same with all of us. You know, we're all Lego and we're slowly piecing ourselves together one piece at a time, except we're not 15 to 12 pieces. We're more like bloody 1,000 or 2,000 piece Lego set. And when you look at it, it's overwhelming. But as you just take action and put piece by piece on, you gradually start to get hints about who you are. You know, it's like, ask me 3 years ago, and I would say no way would I get into archery. No. Why would I do archery for? That's a waste of time, right? How can I monetize it? Can't monetize it, waste of time. Like, and then that was because I didn't realize that there was a part of me that, I'm a multifaceted person. I'm not just an entrepreneur. I'm a person outside of that too. And it took me putting pieces together for 3 years before I realized, I really like archery. I really enjoy camping, and it's put together the pieces. Don't let all the pieces overwhelm you. Just put one piece at a time. And you'll start to discover some things about you that will really surprise you. And that to me there, when things surprise you in life about yourself, that is by far the most delightful thing I think that can happen in life.
It's true.
Yeah. I think it's so delightful.
It's that internal feeling of exceeding your own expectation. I think when you get things that are externally validated, if you're sitting there hunting for compliments or external admiration, all that, I think that to me is fleeting. There isn't, it's more like hitting a goal and then an hour later being over it. But where you have that internal feeling of achievement, where you've overcome that your own resistance or resistance to fear or failure, whatever it is. And then you get that outcome in your head. Like for you, it might be when you get a certain type of grouping. So you split the arrow, right? Like no one's watching you do that. No one really cares if you split the arrow, but internally.
My wife doesn't care.
No,
I wish she cared.
Care.
Yeah,
like, no one's going to care about that. But internally you'll be like, you'll know the work that you put in to make that result happen. And then that's got a pretty cool, deep level of satisfaction, I think. And that's what I love doing as well. Like I love those little examples, even whether it's doing stand up horribly or starting a business, or we wrote, like a children's book, like all these little things cool. We started like a burger venture with one of my best mates. Like these were things that we did that, some of them we did short term, some we dabbled with, but there was so much fun just by going through that journey of doing something unexpected and surprising ourselves with, just with a bit of action, a bit of effort, a little bit of ideation. We're able to create something cool that our friends and family could enjoy, or that adds value to people, or that you feel that satisfaction of creating something and putting something out there and not knowing what's going to happen. It's cool.
One of my saddest reflections that I had in the last few days that I wrote in my journal, which is ta-da, is, sorry for the people listening, I was just showing my journal with the sound ta-da, just for clarity. It's like, why did you make that sound? Yeah. I wrote down that up until the last few months, I didn't know that life could be fun. And it's just super sad, is that for so long in my life, I was so driven by making money. I was so driven by the financial aspect of entrepreneurship that even though I was doing things that were exciting, I never had fun in its most pure form. And I didn't think life was meant to have fun elements. Life was just so serious for me, man. And it was sad writing that because, I've lived now 34 years, going on 35 years of life of not knowing that. And I think that was because of growing up in a family that's poor, that didn't have a lot of money, etc. So since a very young age, I prioritized the finance game and was playing the finance game and wasn't playing the fun game. And it was just funny reflecting on that. I wrote down and I was like, wow, I never knew that life should actually be fun.
Yeah.
And then the reason I say this is I want to link it in with the next lesson as well, is that this book says, we should use our hands. In the literal sense of what I said, like use your hands. And the book says, use your hands, step away from the screen. You don't need a scientific study to tell you that sitting in front of a computer all day is killing you and killing your work. We need to move. We need to feel like we're making something with our bodies, not just our heads. So to me, it's funny because the moment I started using my hands more, even as simple as writing, that changed everything for me. And I'm just gonna pair that lesson of writing with another book that I've been reading, and it's the book by, in Vietnamese is Thầy Thích Nhất Hạnh, and in English is Thich Nhat Hanh, I think they'd pronounce it as. But he's got a book on communication, and Thầy Thích Nhất Hạnh says that writing is a form of nourishment for you, not just for the person you're writing the letter to. Let's say if it's a letter. Because the act of writing loving and compassionate and kind words is actually healing for you as you write it. Let's say you don't use your hands and you're typing an email. Even when you're typing a loving, a compassionate, and a supportive email filled with kindness, the act of you writing that isn't just beneficial for the person who receives it, it's beneficial for you as the person writing it. And when he wrote that, I was like, what? That is such an interesting spin that I'd never thought of. I always thought of me, if the moment I do something nice for someone, I just think, look at them, they're about to receive this nice thing. But I don't realize that I am the beneficiary of that kind act, even when I write it. It's a form of nourishment. I never thought of that. So combining that all in, to me writing to myself now, I've been writing kind stuff to myself in this journal, which I have to admit, when I wrote it, it felt so lame. I was like, you are gorgeous. Yeah, I didn't write that, but I am. But writing things like, you are amazing at what you do. Yeah, I did. I just didn't want to admit it. But it's writing things like, you are an amazing dad. You're trying as hard as you can.
Yep.
Like I know it feels so weird saying it. But when I wrote it, before I wrote it, I judged it immensely. After I wrote it, I went, thanks, man. It's like, it was so weird, but it's.
Well, we're often our own harshest critic, right? So I think it's important because I do something similar when I'm journaling too. If I'm having a negative thought, I always think, well, how can I turn this negative thought into something positive? Even if it's with, it could be someone that's annoying me or something like that. It's like, all right, well, is there an angle here to show that person compassion rather than just having that negative thought looping around in my head? Because I think that's also an energy form. If you're sitting there walking around with 50 negative thoughts about yourself and other people and what's going on in your life, it's going to be pretty hard to find the time and space for, call it this proactive energy to come through. And it's amazing how writing it down can help for me, it removes the loop, because it'll be like, blah, blah, blah is annoying me because of this. And then it's like, all right, the next sentence might be, well, what do I appreciate about that person and what might be going on that I can't even see that's resulting in that annoyance, to turn it, instead of a form of judgment, into compassion. I think there's power in that too. And you could do that with anyone, like your greatest adversaries, your biggest rivals, people that you, quotation marks, hate. Like, there's always a way to show some form of compassion, because even if somebody's done something super negative to you, there's probably a lesson in it of some shape or form. And writing that down is a pretty good way of working through it, I think.
Yeah, and I mean, it aligns with what this book is saying as well, because it's encouraging us to do things with our hands. And I think we don't do enough of that. I think that's what also drew me to magic, is because I'm doing things with my hands. It draws me to archery is because I'm again doing things with my hands. I think there's an element that we're missing out on when what we're creating is behind a screen and it's not in front of us. It's why I think, again, I started painting rocks. We got bored during lockdown, so I started taking action, thinking, use my resourcefulness as an entrepreneur. What do I have in the house? What can we do? And we had a bed of rocks that would just looked lame. So we started painting them. And I got to tell you, man, before I did it, again, you just go, oh, this is so stupid. What am I doing? Fell in love with it, did it for hours. And I sent you a picture of me painting all these ridiculous faces, and it looked quite good. But
yeah, that's what you wrote to yourself in your journal. You're like,
You're an amazing artist. You are incredible. Da Vinci would be ashamed of himself. Yeah, but it's just
modern day Da Vinci.
It's just me doing these things with my hands, it opened a different part of my brain for sure. For sure. So I think, the lesson from the book is find opportunities where you can do things with your hands, get away from the computer a little bit. If you want to be more creative, you've got to get away from the screens. Because here's the thing. When you're using the screen, you're consuming. You're not creating, you're consuming. When we're on our phones, we're consuming. And I think we've got to be conscious of that, of balancing consuming with creating. Because creating is linked to knowing yourself. Consuming is an endless pit of misery. So it's not always misery, but it becomes misery when you do it for too long. So I think you've got to create for the sake of getting to know yourself, and you've got to consume for the sake of distraction, because sometimes in life we just need a distraction. So to me, it's the balance of getting to know yourself and distracting yourself. Careful it's not too lopsided.
I like that. And just as you were saying that too, like when we think about pursuing passions, and sometimes that inner voice will be like, oh, that's a waste of time, or I shouldn't be doing this. I think a powerful tool to overcome that is by gamifying things. And it's funny what you can gamify in your own head, even just with a piece of paper and a few tick boxes. Like even things like building Lego, right? Like you could make a list and be like, all right, every time if you're building, the animal park set, like you write that down and it's a tick box. So then you have something actually complete, even though it's play and all of that. You can hack feeling that sense of achievement and momentum even with mundane. Like I loved it even the other day. My wife, the kids were mucking around to give them some structure. She just gave them a list of like 6 chores to do with a tick box on it. And you should have seen how much they loved it. And then they would have the marker, they would go and tick it off. They would then go do the next chore and then tick it off and then high five and then celebrate. And at the end, a little chocolate as a reward, like something that usually would have taken like, oh, come on, boys, go do it, repeatedly asking them to go and do their chore, was just turned into a game. And you could do that with anything, whether it's reading a book or maximizing the time you spend on Instagram. Like you can gamify so much.
Moving forward with another lesson that I really liked, and I love you to throw in a lesson that you liked as well. I know I'm kind of taking the wheel here and throwing in what I found to be useful. Good. I like the part where the author talks about school yourself. You have to be curious about the world in which you live. Don't ask questions before you Google it. You'll either find an answer or you'll come up with a better question. And it made me think a lot about curiosity, because again, the statement he wrote was you have to be curious about the world you live in. I feel like because information is at our fingertips, we're no longer curious about things. I mean, I feel like when I was younger, and I don't know if this is a false memory, but I feel like I used to be more curious, I wonder how many people live in Malaysia. I wonder what the population is in Kuala Lumpur, or I wonder how long the biggest anaconda is, or I wonder what the force at which an alligator can bite is. Oh. I feel like I used to wonder those things more. And I feel like
there's going to be somebody listening to this that's going to send you the answers to all of those questions. You do realize that.
Yeah, but I mean, do you feel that we're less curious now because we know we can get all of the information within 5 seconds?
Yeah, for sure. I think it would be really interesting. I'd love one day to get all of my Google searches over the years and then see like, what are the questions that I've asked and what were the things? Because I think Google would be a really cool place to start to be able to track your curiosity.
Well, but do you think you are more curious now than when you were as a child? Or do you think you've become less curious? I think I've become less curious.
Oh,
wow. For you, you have to think about it. That's interesting. For me, it's 100%. Yeah, I'm less curious.
I think maybe more. I'm a pretty curious person.
Yeah?
Yeah. Wow. I love knowing how things work. And I think I would say more curious because when I was younger, there was less information available. Mm-hmm. And B, you don't like curiosity kind of compounds. Like the more that you dabble in and that you explore, I find myself, I get more curious about that thing. Like if I think about the 15 or 20 things that I'm curious about right now, 10 years ago, I would have had 2 things or 3 things that I was curious about.
Okay.
So for me, maybe it goes the other way a little bit. And I also love the fact that the information's so readily available. But I'm a huge consumer of information. Like I love it. I love, like, even probably more so than acting on it, I love just consuming knowledge. Like that's probably my pastime. I'd much rather than be on social media or whatever. I'd rather be reading a book or Googling something, researching something. It's pretty, natural for me. But
it also made me think of
less
curiosity.
playful though. What I will say though is I'm probably still as curious, but I think when I was younger, like we've spoken about this a lot more, I was a lot more playful with the things that I was curious about. And you go and try things and you do whatever and all that. Whereas nowadays, maybe that's just with age, you think about it a little bit more and you plan it out.
The way I've thought about play real quick as well. Yeah, but I mean, the way I thought about play in recent kind of months is that play helps with the learning process, and play is vital during learning because it makes learning fun. Because like we mentioned before, when you're learning something new, it's a form of suffering. You suffer, man. It's hard. So then when it can be playful in nature, the learning, then it helps make the learning process more, you can endure it better. It's why when I created my online course this time around, I sent you a bunch of silly videos that I make. I do all these little silly gags and side videos because it makes the learning process more fun. And that's why anytime I learn something new now, I try to make things more fun for myself. Even, instead of just shooting this black board, I buy targets with different shapes on it, and just to make anything to make it more fun. I get a Bluetooth speaker and I play Lord of the Rings to pretend I'm Legolas. Anything I can do to make things more fun. I think that's a very important part of learning. Yeah. So think about play when it comes to learning and see how you can kind of mix that up to make it more.
Even all those words that we've been mentioning, like learning, playing, curiosity, enjoying stuff, like they all kind of go hand in hand. There's nothing... It just shows you that you can do things from that perspective. Like even when you were talking about your journey and, how it was so focused on, call it the financial aspect of it. If you actually look back on it, I'm sure you'll also then see that you did sprinkle enjoyment and play in there, but it probably just feels like it wasn't as magnified because you had a different perspective on how you view it now. Right. Like,
it was probably because I was taking it very seriously.
Taking it seriously, right? Because it was a career and you try to master it and you try to make it in a pretty tough environment. But even when I remember when you were saying that story, like I was looking back on it, like I've been on the road with you and I'm like, it's pretty fun. Like, it wasn't like, all right, guys, I'm going to bed at 6 p.m. because we're out tonight. Like, we were going to comedy shows and you had one of your best mates, Craig, with you on the road all the time. And like, I look at that and I'm like, I actually feel like you did make it pretty fun, but it maybe didn't feel that way. Like as an external viewer, it's different as well. But I think that, the point of that is that anything that we do, depending on how we tell our story towards it, it'll play out that way. Like you could do something and you could tell yourself like the exact same thing. And you can tell yourself two different stories. Yeah. It could be like, my ex-wife was the best ex-wife that I've ever had in my, I don't have an ex-wife by the way anyway, but it's like, she was the best ex-wife that I've ever had. And I learned so much from her and we had an amazing family. Or you can go with the lens of my ex-wife ruined my life and took everything from me. It's the exact same thing that happened. The only difference is the perspective that you're bringing to it.
It's like in life, we're all painting pictures, but some of the paint we use is permanent and some of the paint we use is washable with water. Which which memories are you painting with a permanent marker and which ones are you painting with a washable paint, right? It's for sure. It's so true because you're right. To every relationship, to every friendship, there's the good moments and the bad moments. And you get to choose which one gets painted in with permanent and which one gets painted in with washable ink.
And I think it ties back to energy. You're talking about energy before and you're talking about I think energy and emotions, like the way that we remember things are largely driven by the type of energy and probably the emotions that we had
for sure
to that environment. Like you could be doing on paper, the funnest thing ever, but if emotionally something else is a blockage at that time, or you're feeling angry or sad about something, you're not going to be able to enjoy it. Like you could be winning an Academy Award, but if you've had a fight with somebody that you really love or whatever, and you've had a falling out or you've received some bad feedback, like your memory of that experience, which could have been so amplified and positive, might be negative. You know, so I think that's also and we're seeing that a lot with the pandemic at the moment. Like we're seeing some people are like, oh, I love lockdowns because I get to just simplify things and do my thing. And then you'll see other people and they're like, I hate lockdown. It's the worst thing ever. Like I've lost this or the opportunity there. And I think the lockdown's still the exact same thing, but the perspective might be different.
It's true. I mean, I posted a picture of myself camping on social media, and I immediately got a message in my DMs saying that I shouldn't be posting that picture of me having a good time because there's lots of people suffering. And and it was interesting because it's funny. I think we always forget that social media is just a snapshot of our lives and it's not our complete lives. You know, I mean, you know, my family went through hard times. There were things that I lost in my business. And it's funny because we live in a world now where sometimes when you try to see the positive in the negative, you can even get shot down for that, which is pretty interesting. But I want to bring it back real quick to the curiosity component, because I think curiosity can be a fuel source. And I think sometimes we think curiosity is just something that happens when something unusual happens, and I'm curious now because of this unusual thing. Whereas you can actually use curiosity to your advantage. And I'm working with a group of mathematicians here in South Australia, teachers who are trying to inspire other teachers and students to become more curious about mathematics. And what they told me about was that usually what happens is that when you learn math, your teacher will go, here's the formula, here's the problem, plug the problem into the formula. And people never get excited about maths. Whereas what they're trying to do now is they're trying to say, here's the problem. How do you think we can solve this? So start engaging, like instead of giving them the formula straight away, they want to engage in their curiosity and go, what are the different ways in which you can solve this problem? How many different ways can you solve the same problem? Whereas when I was taught math when I was young, is that there's only one way to solve that problem. You use this formula. It's the most efficient way to solve this problem. So in math class, there was never any thinking that happened. It was just, here's the formula, plug it in. Here's the formula, plug it in. Here's the formula, plug it in. There was rarely any thinking that was done. Whereas now they're trying to get kids to be more curious by saying, hey, here's the problem. How would you approach this?
That's cool.
And that's such a better way of teaching, because then it's teaching the kids that there are many ways to solve the same problem, instead of people thinking there's only one way. And I think that is so true now, because, you know, I see these posts on my Facebook or my Instagram of people who try something and they fail, and then they just don't try again, because in their own mind, there's the undercurrent of, there's only one way, and if that way didn't work, there's no other way. Yeah. So I think it's
for sure.
Curiosity is very important. We've got to learn how to foster it in our own lives.
I think with learning as well, it's framing the benefit and providing context. Like it's one of the things that even I've noticed when we're doing homeschooling, is that you'll see there with the kids, and even I'm struggling to understand why do they need to learn this thing, because I don't understand the context of it. And then that can be very demotivating and disengaging. You know, and the delivery is obviously pretty important as well. But I always find that even when it's a maths lesson, like if I can explain it to the kids around, all right, well, you need to learn this because when you're older, one day you're going to have to calculate this thing, and knowing your numbers and being able to add those two things. Like if you want to buy 5 video games and you only have $100 and the video game's $90, like how are you going to figure that out? Like that's why these things are really important. And then once they see the context behind it, it might change the energy and the motivation to actually then figure it out. Whereas I remember being in high school and learning about things like science and algebra and all that. And I'm like, I'm never going to use this. Like, how can I put this into my longer term memory?
Well, I mean, I wish the teachers told me when I was young that mathematics is linked directly to your logic. You know, the better your mathematics, the better your logic, and the better you're able to negotiate. I mean, you think about any time someone is trying to convince someone of something, they use statistics. And statistics is mathematics, right? And, 97% of people who do this get this. Or again, if you don't have a strong grounding in that, your ability to think in an entrepreneurial way, in a logical way, in a creative way is severely limited. But yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right.
For sure. Especially around negotiating and deal making. Like it's an art form that is fully combined on combining mathematics and conveying value through the data, and then combining that with storytelling and a narrative of benefit. Right? Like that's all it is when you're developing a partnership with someone. It's, I'm going to do this, 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 and this. It's going to benefit you like this. And here's the proof, which is the data and the mathematics behind it. And if you get that right, generally the chances for a deal is pretty good. Really good point. I like that.
One other note I had for curiosity.
There you go.
Sorry, one other note for curiosity, and then I'll throw it back to you. Sorry. The only other note I had for curiosity is that the reason why magic is amazing to people is because they don't know how it's done, and you are curious about how to do it. So I do the piece of magic, and if I just told you how it's done afterwards, you'd be extremely disappointed. But if I withheld that information from you, you become extremely curious, and think about the feeling you feel when you're curious. It's such a energetic feeling. It's such a beautiful feeling. You might, it's this wonderful experience. So I wrote that down here as well, because think about how you can create astonishment in your own life in terms of, magic doesn't just have to be with magicians. Magic can also exist in physics. It can also exist in, biology. And there's so many different areas where you can try to foster some of that curiosity and create some of that astonishment for yourself. It's like that line I was reading in the book by Tay Tunyakan as well. It's like he said, you're never lonely. If you think you're lonely, just close your eyes and listen. Listen to the birds. Listen to the insects crawling around you. Listen to the dog barking in the background. You are not alone. That is a silly statement. You are filled. You are surrounded by living creatures and beings. And, that form of astonishment is right there. It's so easy for us to feel all these things. But to me, again, I think there are many ways we can use curiosity to our advantage. So that's all I wanted to say on that. Over to you.
I love it. I like it. No, just one of the notes that I had is I love this concept of, he said there was 2 steps to creating, call it, and one is called step 1, wonder at something. Step 2, invite others to wander with you. And I love that notion of even doing good work and then sharing it with people. Like that was a big takeaway in this. I've just found myself over the last few months just probably not sharing as much out there. So I think reading this book just reignited that a little bit around, okay, well, let's all get excited and curious. Like what are the things that I'm interested about right now? What am I wondering about? And then how can I then invite others to then do the same? And that's sort of what even now people probably see a little bit more promotion of our podcast going out there, because I think this is one of these things where we wonder about stuff and then we share it with other people. We share what we learn, and I feel like there's something pretty cool about that.
That's one of the reasons why I really love our podcast. It's a way for me to contribute and share the things I'm wondering about and learning out loud. I think that's what's really cool. It's growing out loud. We're in our mid-30s. I'm sure we're going to look back on this in our mid-40s and mid-50s and go, wow, what a bunch of meatheads. Yeah. I'm sure that's going to happen, but it's cool to be able to capture the process and share it. Because again, I think a lot of the times people see the finished product, people see the end result, whereas being able to capture the way we grow along the way, I think is really cool.
Yeah.
Hey, that's a cool tagline, the way we grow along the way. And it kind of rolls off the mouth, but anyway. Okay.
Yeah, there we go.
Well, I mean, that part of the book that you mentioned was the part where he said, people always ask him, Austin, what's the secret formula? And the secret formula to becoming successful or becoming a great artist. And he said, it's just do good work.
Yeah.
And it's simple as do good work and then share it.
Yeah.
And it sounds so simple. It kind of frustrates you when I remember the first time I heard another version of that, and, one of the podcasts we've already covered, So Good They Can't Ignore You, is a quote by Steve Martin, but also a title of a book by Cal Newport. I remember hearing that early on in my journey, be so good they can't ignore you. I hated that because it annoyed me, because it meant I had to go and be really good. And this same statement, now reading it, I fully understand it, because if you just do good work, things will happen. Momentum will build. But you have to do good work.
That Steve Martin analogy. I was watching this show called The Shop on HBO. It's on maybe on Binge or Foxtel, one of those. And it's LeBron James. He brings in like 5-6 different artists, athletes, and they come in there in a barbershop and they just talk shit pretty much for half an hour.
Oh, wow.
And
that's amazing.
Yeah, it's cool, pretty cool show. And there was an episode with the comedian actor Bill Hader, I think his name is. He was on Saturday Night Live, and he was talking about his journey into Saturday Night Live and coming up as a comedian and as an actor and as a director. And they were doing a Saturday Night Live episode, and he walked past the change room and saw Steve Martin practicing his monologue. And Steve Martin's sitting there for like an hour before the show. And this is Steve Martin, one of the best of all time, doing his thing. And he's sitting there practicing, trying to get that monologue absolutely perfect. And then Bill Hader's walking past, he's like, aha, Steve Martin wasn't just born Steve Martin. Like, Steve Martin works hard to be Steve Martin. And he was saying it was like a game changer for him in his career, where he realized that I just can't rock up here and just call it in. And then LeBron and a couple of, I think Jon Stewart, the other comedian that had a talk show, they were talking about it. Jon Stewart was saying that he had a 17-year career on The Daily Show. And by the end of it, he found himself like cheating the game, where they'd be like, oh, why don't you do a skit? You put on a suit, we'll meet you out in the street at like 12 p.m. and then we'll go out and interview people. And then Jon Stewart's like, how about I'll just do it from home in my pajamas and we won't do any of that stuff. So his notion was like, he got to the point where even though he worked so hard to build that show up for 17 years, by the end of it, he was over it. And then LeBron was like the complete opposite. And it just sort of showcased how different his mentality is. Like, even 20 years into his career, he's like, I'm still not cheating the game. He was saying that he'll watch, even when he's not playing in the playoffs, he'll watch every single game and he's still taking notes. Like, he'll do his routine. He'll do his workout routines every single day. Like, that mindset is still so switched on. And he was saying that, yeah, it's a really good point that when you find yourself cheating the game, even if you are a so-called expert in it, it probably means that it's coming closer to the end of the journey. And I'm like, that's a really cool viewpoint on even mastery and doing good work that I hadn't really heard before.
It is. Well, and also I think you've got to appreciate that not everyone is a LeBron, right? That's why knowing yourself is so important, because I think a lot of people suffer because they feel like, oh, I'm not a LeBron James. I'm not a Jeff Bezos. I'm not a Elon Musk. Oh, I'm a horrible person. No, it's not. If we were all like them, it wouldn't be good at all for the world. I think what's important is that we're all different. And again, it speaks to the importance of knowing yourself, right? Whether it's knowing you're not a LeBron James and it's okay that you only get to your 14 years of your career and you want to call it quits, that's great. Or maybe you are even more than a LeBron James and you've been doing it for 50 years and you still want to go. I think it's just, again, speaking to the importance of knowing yourself.
For sure. And then they're outliers. Like, even in
absolutely.
That show, when they're sitting there and they're speaking about LeBron, and there's other basketball players, NBA players in there that he's played with that are in the top 5-10 players in the league. And even they kind of sit there and they're like, well, we're just programmed a little bit different. Like, LeBron is a once in a lifetime type of player, whereas we're pretty bloody good. We're stars in our own right, but we're not at that level. We don't have the mindset. And they were saying it, like, he can access a different part of his brain where he can lock in for longer, whereas other people will get distracted. They won't be able to go all in on something for 20 years. I think it's a pretty hard thing to do. And that's the difference, is like the people that we celebrate are often those people that have gone all in on something for 20 years. And then we can feel like, oh yeah, I'll never be that. But geez, if I can be 80% of those people that were all in for 20 years, it's still going to be pretty good.
Another one that I really liked from the book was the whole concept of building your own world. And the author writes, build your own world. You don't have to live anywhere other than the place you are to start connecting with the world you want to be in. And I think that's become very relevant for all of us here around in Australia right now, because basically the whole country almost is locked down, and Sydney's extending the lockdown, I think, and hopefully Melbourne and Adelaide get out of our lockdown today. And who knows, we might get locked down again in a month's time, right? But what it's really proven to me during this lockdown period is that build your own environment. I mean, if any of you see the video right now I'm in my studio. Ali is in his studio, in his home, and we've built an environment for ourselves, and I think you be resourceful, do what you can with what you have, but you can build your own space. I've got my archery stuff hung up. I've got some of my camping things hung up to inspire me, because those are the things I really am into right now. I've got pictures up. I've got quotes. I really think there is something about creating your own space and your own world that you want to be in. Even like you, Ali, I know you've got pictures of people who inspire you, books of, the people that inspire you up. I think it's, don't not do that. I think do that, because every little bit helps, especially when we're going through such tough times like we are right now. Any little bit helps. Even for me, having every now and then putting our logo up inspires me and going, yes, I do love our podcasts, and I've got certain words that I put up in neon lights over in my office. I've got one that says break the mold, remember to break out of the norm. So I think it's important to put a little bit of effort into creating the world that you want to exist in, even if it's the small space you have called home.
Sure. Yeah.
Creative.
Yeah. Get creative, like what you said. Like even just little things like there's you could go to full on levels, like creating studios and doing all those and office spaces and stuff like that. Like I know a lot of people are working from home, like get that space as nice as possible if you can. But I think just even little things like when I saw you posting, like I know you love starting fires in the fire pit. So I went down and for $50 got a fire pit, and that's been a game changer for the family during lockdown. You get little bits of wood and we roast marshmallows on it and sit outside, listen to music. You look at the sky, like it's awesome. Like something so simple has given us hours and hours of enjoyment. And
it's been happening nightly in the Giang household, fires every night. Yeah, it's amazing.
Go into the garage, just find something that makes something old new again. You might find some old toys or Lego or Matchbox cars or whatever it is, dolls. Like, there's so many ways to be creative.
I mean, even if it's like if you've got a journal or something you write in, writing a few words that you see every day is so important. That's a part of your environment. Another point in the book earlier on that it talks about, where is it? It says, where is it? It's the whole point about influence, and you are your surroundings. Do you remember that part?
Yes, like there was a bit that just reminded me of you that spoke about you're the average of the 5 people you surround yourself with.
Yeah, that was the part I'm referring to. I can't find
I'd love you to speak to that. So in this book, it talks about, I think look at the 5 inspirations around you, whatever. But I would love you to speak about that concept, because I know you teach this in depth.
Well, it's to me, the reason why and again, talk about stealing from other people. The quote that I use, you're the direct reflection of the top 5 people you spend time with. That is a quote from Jim Rohn, who I think was one of the people who originally put it in that way. There's another one, I think, birds of the same something flock together.
Jim's theory.
There's so many different versions of that. And it's because it's, to me, a universal law. It genuinely is a universal law. And in the book, the author also references studies where they've done statistic research where your income is most likely the average of the 5 people that you spend time with, or close to it. And the values you have are the average of the 5 people, their values that they have around you. And I kind of use that strategically. Again, now that I'm doing archery, I've updated my top 5. There's an archer in there, right? I think there's a danger in keeping the same top 5 throughout your life, because then you're not strategically using this universal law to your advantage. it's very easy to keep the same people in your top 5. It's very easy. And please, I'm not talking about your friends. And this is a strategic top 5 that you've formulated to help you achieve the things you're going after in your life. And it's very easy to keep the same top 5 because it's convenient. But for me, as I change goals, I like to bring different people into my top 5. Like right now, I'm hunting for a camping enthusiast to bring into my top 5. I'm looking for someone who understands, what vehicle do I need to optimize the camping experience? What trailer I need to get? What types of tent? What type of materials the tent should be? What type of awning I should get? What type of, how many liters of water do I need if I want to go on a 3 or 4 day camping trip? So to me, I align my top 5 always with the things that I'm trying to do in my life. That's it. It's simple as that.
I love it.
It's whatever you're trying to pursue, who in your top 5 is currently able to help propel you in that direction.
Yep. I remember you also saying once that you could have different types of top 5, and you can
absolutely
reviews. Like, so you could have your, your family and friends top 5. You can have your work top 5. You can have your business top 5. You can even start breaking it down like that. So then you can start. It's a really cool platform to evolve your network and your community. That's what I find. It's a cool, practical way even to list it down and to be conscious of how that is. Because I think the people in our lives often happen quite organically, and it's not something that you really consciously change too much if you don't think about it. And it is a game changer. Like I remember you saying it, like the example you used to use was when you were a magician, right? Like if you were sitting there and showing, you can't learn how to become a better magician from your 5 school friends, right? You need to go to an environment where there's going to be 5 other magicians that are very expert in their field, so you can then learn from them, and they're also then experiencing the same thing. It's the same with like entrepreneurship. Speaking to your friends and family about your business idea is going to be great, but it's going to be a lot different going to, say, a startup grind event or to an entrepreneurship organization event where you're speaking to a whole network of people that are experiencing that thing, that know exactly what you're going through, that can give you tailored and specific advice on that. I think there's something very special in that. It's cool.
It's just one of those things where I think when people don't fully grasp the power of it, it's very easy to just listen to and go, oh yeah, that's cool, but then just never do anything about it. I have so many examples. I love to barbecue food. I used to barbecue food myself just with watching YouTube videos, didn't really change or alter my top 5. Then I went and did a masterclass on how to barbecue. And momentarily for 2 days had an incredible person who barbecues from Texas teach myself and a few of my friends how to really barbecue. And then I cooked a brisket over the weekend that I sent you a photo to as well. I sent you all these photos. Yeah. And dude, it was the best brisket I've ever had in my life. Better than the brisket I have to say that I had in Texas, which Texas is renowned for it. Wow. I couldn't believe that I cooked it. Like the shock that I was in when I ate it was unbelievable. And it was unreal. Just
I remember when you cooked that tomahawk steak. Like I still think about that. That's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous. Yeah, it's ridiculous. So good. But it is really good. But to me, it's just when you apply this lesson once and you truly understand the power for it forever, it becomes a move in your toolkit that you use. I use it all the time, yearly, every year, all the time. Yep. I really like this next lesson in the book, and I'd love to hear one from you as well as we kind of round out the podcast soon too. But I like the lesson, be nice. The world is a small town. You're only going to be as good as the people you surround yourself with in the digital space. That means following the best people online, the people who are way smarter and better than you. It's true, nourishment is not just food. Nourishment is the words that people say to us. It's the people we follow on social media. So choose your nourishment wisely and be nice. I love that. It's so simple and straightforward, but just be nice.
I love it.
What's the final one you want to bring on? Oh, actually, I've got one more, but I'll let you bring one on before I throw one more.
I'll do my last one. I think the example of Jerry Seinfeld, and how he used a calendar to streak his mastery, call it, of comedy. That's one that really stood out.
We heard about that in Atomic Habits too, I think.
Yep. It's one that's always used. And there's a documentary with Seinfeld where he goes through it. And I still remember it at the start of the documentary. He's in a New York street and he's got all of his yellow pages where he's written his jokes, and it completes they've put it across the whole road. It's a street worth of notes. That's how many jokes that he's written down, and it just highlights his commitment to mastering his craft. And I remember him speaking about that in that documentary as well, where he just had a calendar and he's like, I just make sure I don't miss a day. Every day there's a component of working on my craft. And then I think in Still Like an Artist, it has a really cool little graphic in the book where it shows you just like a simple cross type of scenario that you can draw on any piece of paper that just has the date and then you put a cross on it. And what a really cool way to lock in a habit or to move towards some sort of outcome. They speak about writing a book, for example. If it's really hard, and even me and our team at the moment, we've been speaking about this a lot. Like, we've got some pretty big goals that we want to achieve this year. And we speak about the elephant. Like, if we look at it just as a whole, it's an absolute elephant. Like, there's no way we're going to be able to eat the elephant all in one bite. Like, it's overwhelming. It's hard to do it. But if we start really breaking it down using tools like Asana, and you break down those 5 or 6 goals that we've got into 500 different action items, and you sort of sequence those over a 9 to 12 month period, it ends up being 2 or 3 things every single day. And we'll end up hitting those 500 items that we need to. And I think that's a really cool way of doing this as well, because if you're out there and you want to write a 1-hour comedy special or write a 400-page book, it's pretty overwhelming when you look at it as a whole. But if you need to write 1 page a day for a year, that's probably a little bit more manageable.
Same thing happened when I was writing down my goals for my online course I want to release, right? That I'm going to release pretty soon. And it's the whole, that online course revenue model. I was writing down my goals of $300,000 or $500,000. And when you look at it, you go, oh, is that realistic for just that income stream? And then when you break it down, you go, that's selling 3 to 4 courses a day.
Yeah.
And you'll hit it, and all of a sudden it becomes more manageable when you break it down.
Yep.
I would like to end with the last one, just being be boring. It's the only way to get work done.
I like that.
It takes a lot of energy to be creative. You don't have that energy if you waste it on other stuff. Eat breakfast, do some push-ups, go for long walks, get plenty of sleep. Neil Young sang the song, "It's better to burn out than to fade away." He says it's better to actually burn slow and see your grandkids. but that little passage I liked, because I really connect with that now. I really connect with the, burn slow and see your grandkids. And also I really connect with be boring, because boring is a part of the fuel that is needed to create creativity. So I kind of try to schedule in a few things that I find boring, and I am proud to say that I do the dishes daily. Extremely boring task for me. I don't listen to a podcast while I'm doing it now, because I used to, because I thought, you know what? It's good to just let your mind settle. And when I look at the campfire, I just look at the campfire. I'm not on my phone. I just look at it. And to me, I equate that to when we engage with things, it stirs our mind. And if our mind is like a pond with dirt, the more you stir your mind, the more muddy it gets. When you don't do anything with your mind and you just sit and allow yourself to be bored, it's a form of settling your mind. And when I look at the fire or just do the dishes or vacuum and mop, I do those things also. I just settle my mind. My mind feels settled when I finish it. It feels still. And I believe what the author said. And that's when my most creative ideas or creative thoughts come to me, is that when my mind is still. So be boring. It's the only way to get some creative work done.
It's why everyone always says, right? I had the idea while I dreamt about it, or I was in the shower, or I was driving.
Toilet.
It's doing these things that do calm that down. I think there's a lot of potential evidence around that to get that real deep level of creativity and insight, it's hard to do that when there's a lot of noise or activity. So I love that. Finishing lesson, my friend. Very nice.
Hey, this was a great book, and I encourage you all to jump out and grab it. Yeah, I mean, I just read it on the iPhone, but I know you encourage people to get the physical copy because of the brilliant artwork.
It's nice and it's designed really nicely. It's got it's just really nice bite size chunks of wisdom thing. You know, it takes about an hour to read. It's it's not that onerous. It's a good one to have around. I like it.
Last one. I love this that the author said, and I'm going to butcher it, but he says, when you copy one person, people will perceive it as being plagiarism. But when you copy from 100 people, people see it as being the most original thing they've ever seen.
I love
it. I hope that this book has inspired you all to not have a negative view on emulation. Emulation is a wonderful thing. Chefs do it. Athletes do it. Everybody does it. I do it. Ali does it. And you should too. Thanks everyone for joining us for this episode. We will see you in the next episode when we review the next book. And thanks to everyone who joined us live, and subscribe to the podcast. Bye.